Hey guys, one of the most asked questions that I get, social media, in person, on the water, is how do I set up my units, you know, when I first get my boat out of the box? What do you do special or whatever? So we decided to film all of this. I have Scott here from the Bass Tank in Tulsa. I know how to do about 90% of it. There's some of that deep stuff, you know, like NMEA and things like that, that sometimes I have to have help with. He's here. We're just going to walk you through the whole video, each unit, how we set everything up. And you may have 3 units. I'm going to have 5 this year. You may have 3, 2, or whatever, but realistically, don't you agree they're going to set up the same way?
They're going to set up the same. You just may have to add, you know, it just carries over to the next unit. So the same setup for one unit carries over to the next unit.
Right.
Multiply that to however many units you have.
So what I'm going to do, I'm going to trade places because he's going to kind of drive everything. And yeah, we'll just take you through one step at a time, from powering on the units all the way through to ready to make a cast.
All right, guys, so the units are powered on. The first thing we're gonna do is go to our home screen here, and we've got a full system we need to set up. So right here at the home screen, we're gonna go into our settings. We're gonna go into communications, and then we're gonna go into marine network. Now this is all the units on the system right here. As you can tell, we've got everything from GLS-10, that's our live scope. We've got our 12-inch units, even our forces connected to the units as well. You can always see the software version, so that's one of the first things we do is check and make sure we're at the latest software version across the board. So right now we've got a Force 3.0, no name. We select it, change name, clear, and then we just type in Force, or however you want to name that. Then this 106 right here, Jason, I believe that's going to be your turret unit.
He has you can see that transducer is named turret, but not the unit.
Correct.
The only thing that was done at Bass Tank was he had to go in and name this stuff. Just because we have so much going on, he had to name it to be able to keep it separate. That's the only thing that's been done on these units, is these have been named.
And one thing of note here is we're on this unit, and normally this would say 126, 126, 126. You really don't know where you're at. Well, this tells you that I'm on this device. Yeah. And so that lets you know if I go to this unit over here, go into my settings, communications, marine network, I'm gonna have this device. Well, you see it's console right, as we have a name, versus console left. So wherever you're at, it will tell you that we're at this device. Now I can name them from anywhere. So we've already done a lot of the work back at the shop, but right here, this 106, again, we would just select it, change the name, clear, and then we'll call it your turret, right? That's what you're gonna name it. And that way, if you're on that unit, or if we go into some of the other settings we're gonna look at, we know not to select any sonar from that. Yep. So as far as naming goes, that's all it is. You know, that's something you handle quite a bit, but whether it's one unit or whether it's 5 or 10, the process is the same. So now we're gonna hit the home button, come back here into settings. And what we're gonna look at is we're gonna set up where we're selecting our sonar from. So we wanna come into communications, preferred sources, and then every one of these is set to auto right now. I really don't want that set to auto. I want to dictate, you know, which transducer, what I'm using for GPS, so I can select it. And it's very simple. All I do is I select whatever I'm looking at. And now when we name those, if you remember, we had bow, stern, or built-in. And so I'm going to use the built-in GPS receiver on this particular unit for its GPS.
Which that means built-in means that's the transducer that's hard connected to the back, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. So for example, traditional sonar, we come into auto, there's our built-in. Now, bow, bottom, Ethernet. So I could actually select whatever transducer is connected to the bow, but it's telling me this is an Ethernet connection, so this is network sonar.
Right.
This is absolutely where we want that built in for this particular unit. And same thing, we just follow suit with the clear view and side view as well.
What that does is the boat, and tell me if I'm wrong, if we had it on auto, and say, for instance, on the trolling motor, you pull the trolling motor out of the water, these units are smart enough that it will pull depth off another unit.
Correct.
I want it to be on each unit.
That's exactly correct. So, you know, and there's some instances, like for example, maybe you're hitting some rough water and all of a sudden you lose communication with one of these, you know, in a worst case scenario, it might start trying to read, if left in auto, off a transducer that's not even in the water anymore, and we don't want that. So I always go in and say built in, that way we've got better control of what's going on. And then depth, again, same thing, internal, water temp, built in. Now you'll notice that, for example, on the water temp, I've got a lot more options. And it's because everything that can possibly give me water temp is going to be here. Just like with GPS, everything that possibly could give me GPS is going to show up right here.
Yeah, each one of these units and each one of these transducers have the ability to transmit water temperature, GPS location, and we want to use what's hard connected to this unit there.
That's exactly right. So that way when you're out there, you know, doing your graphing and you see something, you know that it's what you're seeing here and there's not some crazy offset, you know, from a GPS standpoint.
Right.
So then again, we've named the units, we've selected our sources. So then we're going to come in here and we've got a NMEA connection on here. Again, go into settings, communications, and then we've got a NMEA 2K setup. And then we're going to look at our device list. Now, every one of these units are connected to NMEA. Now, something people will notice is there's no names here. Well, there's a difference in naming the unit and naming the unit in a NMEA world. So those are two different networks. And I've got to name it on the NMEA device as well. It may not be as necessary because we're not so much worried about the unit NMEA data. We're worried about these heading sensors and these GPS sensors. So this is where this is very important right here. So this right here, this GPS 19 is at the bow, and then GPX 24. To change the name, same way. Select it, review, change name right there. Now, something of note, and this we'll get into this here in a minute, is it's saying this is uncalibrated. This is brand new, never been calibrated. So what we do is we would select it and we would hit review. Then it's going to have this ability right here, compass calibration, and it's going to walk through the procedure right there.
And that's a video for later to
absolutely
calibrate that, the GPS, calibrate the trolling motor. We'll follow this video up with some of those calibrations.
Absolutely, but just be aware those things absolutely have to be done, as you're very well aware. It'll save you a lot of headache later. You know, with the force, you've got to do that before you can use your anchor mode. You know, and your heading line. People ask us a lot, why is my boat running sideways down the lake? Well, your heading sensor's not calibrated.
Right.
So again, another video for another time, but that's where you get to it. Garmin does a really good job. If people will stop and just take a look at the screen. You know, everyone, we're excited fishermen, we get to pushing buttons. Stop for a second, and for me, my brain says there's a plus sign. What happens when I press plus? Okay, then it says add. And then this is my layout. So how do I want this to set out? You know, let's say we want to do this guy. Well, this is empty. Again, reading the screen before I touch anything, tap the window, change or hold rearrange. So I'm going to touch it. I'm going to put sonar, side view, for example, touch this guy, and maybe I want my charts on that same thing. So then I just select fishing chart. And then the other one is, as you very well know, we can use this to maybe I want more of it for my side view right here. Then when I hit done, I can name this if I want, you know, chart side. That way we always know what it is. So now it's done. So this is here. Now what's really cool is, again, on these Echo maps, we've got these 4 buttons. These are hotkeys.
I use them more than anything.
I know this is one you're familiar with. Press and hold it. It's going to save it to that shortcut key. And now if we're here, all I do is press that 1, and it's going to go right to that.
Yeah.
If I want to do more combos, same thing. I just go to home, combos, and I can just continue on.
Right.
And then this little 1 right here tells me that this is shortcut key 1. So
notice here too this gives you so much information. Here on the side view, it tells you that on the built-in, you're using the transducer that's built in, what frequency you're in. I mean, all this information is given to you on the screen, so you don't have to dig, you know, through the unit to find it. And it's helpful because sometimes you get out there, and like you say, this unit may lose source for a second. You can always look at that and make sure you're wanting to look at the right transducer.
100%. And this data right here, you know, you may not care about your speed and time of day on this particular screen. Right. And so that's very simple to change. You just select menu, and it's going to tell you which menu do you really want to go into. And so I want to go into the side view menu, and then I want to go into my edit overlays. So my navigation inset, I may want to turn it off, top bar, bottom bar. This is where we could add the trolling motor bar right here. So now I can control my trolling motor from there. For this instance, I'm going to say we're going to want none.
One thing about all of these settings that you're doing now, it goes down to personal preference.
Absolutely, it does.
How you want, and I'm going to be different than him. Even, I mean, there's just things that I like different than you do. So once, you know, from here on out, it's really personal preference.
That is exactly correct. You know, we can show you everything, but there's no perfect setting. Yeah. You know, I like having my trolling motor bar on a unit, on a page back here, for one simple reason. There's been a lot of times I've caught a fish, and I either missed my anchor mode button, and I'm putting it in the box, and I'm drifting off my spot. Well, instead of having to run back up there, I can just reach over here, hit anchor mode, and I can draw routes. Videos for another day for sure, but again, that personal preference for sure. So, but if I go into Sonar Setup, and then this overlay data right here, that's affecting this right here. So you can see as I'm taking stuff away. Again, I don't know what you do and don't want, but
you don't need time and voltage on every single.
That's correct.
You know, I usually have it on one.
Yep.
And then my side view and clear view, I'll have it where it's full screen where I'm not missing anything.
That's exactly right. I want this to be completely clean and put some of that stuff on the chart or something else. So, but that's how you get to that right there. Again, getting into the menus, we can dive crazy deep into. There's a lot of personal preference set up. You know, the thing that I would tell people is don't be afraid to touch the buttons, especially when you're first gone out, because you can do a factory default and put everything back. If you think you get so screwed up, just go out there and touch the buttons. The best thing someone can do, and it's the hardest thing to do as a fisherman, go out with your new electronics, leave your fishing rods in the truck, go out for a half a day. Give me a half a day, and I promise you, you'd save yourself 6 months of headache of pressing. Go out, touch every button. When you get done, if you feel like it's just out of sorts, do a factory default and start over.
If you can operate an iPhone, post on Instagram, run emails, you can operate these units.
Absolutely.
It just takes, like he said, it takes some getting used to and understanding and having confidence that you're not going to mess anything up.
So one other thing that I'll mention that we get a lot, and Jason, you may get this a lot, is, you know, Garmin has the updated map cards as well. You know, these units come with the G3 mapping, but they've got the Lakeview Ultra cards. And I get guys say, I'm not sure if it's reading or not. So if you'll go into your charts and go into your fishing chart, and you'll zoom out, let this load. If you zoom out, this boundary right here shows you there's a card in there. This is the east card.
Pull the card, show them what happens.
Is it in this unit over here?
Pop that card out, and you're going to lose that boundary, which is exactly what he's saying, that we don't have, we're not using mapping, we're using what's internally in the unit. So
that went away. So, and when you put this card in, the first time you put it in, it's going to read it, it's going to hear it, and it's going to make you accept all. This is another question. Update software, people say, what do I do with it? Nothing. You know, just if it says accept, but don't update software, just hit back and away we go. So we plugged it back in, and there's our boundary. So this is an east card. The west card runs basically the Mississippi River back west, and you can run those at the same time.
And both maps are internal.
Yeah.
So if you pull the card, you get G3 mapping.
Exactly. Just the upgraded mappings where you get your relief shading and some of that advanced features, but the G3 mapping is still there on the 126s and 106s.
So I know there's a lot of questions out there, and hopefully we answered 2 or 3 of them. You know, there's still a lot of questions. I know you guys have that. So hopefully you learned something, and we appreciate you riding along.